today? And I said, I can.
We're gonna chat today about to bodybuild or to not. And, talking about, is the extreme of prep a challenge someone's looking for? Or maybe they just want to train and eat like a bodybuilder, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And we can chat about some prep stories, why we love bodybuilding, challenges to expect, and the importance of the process.
Yeah, yeah. I had a look at the Google sheet that you sent through just to kind of like, familiarize myself. Because I think last potty, I felt like I couldn't contribute as much because I wasn't on that same page. I felt very much so like a guest, right?
Well, it's funny, Henry. I've done 6 since we did ours, and
Mm.
I've been able to sort of take it to where I want to a bit more now. Like, it's a little bit less directive. It's more conversational, which is like, what I was sort of striving for from the start.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, I'm sort of happy where it's slowly transforming, but also it helps if the other person's like on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I did one on Sunday, and I said, like, man, if you want to ask me questions, like, go for it. If you want to like chat about stuff to me, go for it. So it's not just like a one-way conversation. But I guess that's
I
like,
get you.
just takes time. Yeah. And not everyone's going to be comfortable doing that either.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's fair. So placeholder name right now is Jacky and Chan. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I thought
I
I
don't
thought
think
I
it.
could start off by saying, as we depart into this podcast, we hold each other's swords in unity and transcend space and time to discover and educate ourselves more so on the topic of bodybuilding. I thought that was a nice way of sort of pulling the introduction together in unison with
Holding a
the name.
what?
Our swords.
What?
You
Well,
want a
I
bodybuilding
like
sword,
the.
right?
No, I've actually never received a sword.
Just a
Despite
hammer? Do you have a hammer
despite
or?
I don't have a hammer either, man. Just for some reason, the shows that I've entered and fortunately, won the overalls in, just swordless competitions. It's fucking rigged.
I know, subpar, man. That was actually one of my biggest motivating factors to do ICN Nationals. It's like, I want this sword. I want this sword.
So you got one sword.
I got one sword. Yeah.
You got one sword, right?
I could have had 2
Okay.
though.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think. Yeah, you definitely could have had two. Oh well, you had that dinner reservation booked. You wanted to eat. You wanted to be ready.
I got a good deal, man. I got a good deal.
What was the meal?
We went to, it's like a barbecue place. So we bought a couple of marbled sirloins. It was like you bought a main of meat, and then you got a side of whatever it was, like vegetables. And you always got a dip with it. So it might have been mustard or like a red wine sauce, those type of meat condiment sauces. So you picked your
Okay.
meat, then you got a side, and then you got a sauce or a dip of some sort. So we got like two mains of steak, some slow cooked lamb, slow cooked pork, and some ribeye, and we shared that amongst, I think there was like 10 or 12 of us.
Ooh.
And so we had like sides of. It was good, man.
Damn.
It was solid. A bit of dessert. I think I had a glass of wine. Like, I haven't had alcohol since then, but it was just sort of how it went on that night. Yeah, it was a fucking good night. I was rooted, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, so what I'm imagining is like a steakhouse pub grub, but like the meats went to private school. Like
Yes, Absolutely.
Okay, okay. That kind of gourmet, quote unquote Caucasian fusion.
Yes, that's a perfect way of putting it. Someone who's white with too much money who wants to bring a few different, things together and just make it one.
No, I get it. I get it. Because you get a lot of those kind of foods at the, cheaper kind of pub grub places, right? So I do appreciate when it is a little bit like fancier.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the
When it's a
the
little bit
I
more gourmet.
I'm a bit of a meat person. Like I like to know where it comes from. I know where like the good quality stuff from working at a butcher shop. So I did some of my research and was like, right, okay, they get their lamb from here, their pork from here, supposedly. Uh,
Okay, yeah, okay.
yeah, man.
Right, you
Do you
get
know
that
how?
into
Do
it.
you
You
know?
get into
Do you
like
know how rigged?
the
Yeah.
history.
Well, look, if you go and buy something that's grass fed, like a piece of beef, a steak that's grass fed, you would think that it's only consumed grass, right?
Yeah, okay. This is something that I've never thought about, but yeah, okay, that's
Yeah.
fair assumption. Continue.
Definitionally, under sort of product and consumer law, it only has to it can consume grain for up to 120 days. So it's predominantly grass fed. However, what they usually do is for the last 100 days, 120 days, they'll feed it grain. So the weight doesn't drop, it gets beefed up. And especially when they get transported in those big cattle trucks. Have you ever seen those? It'll be like a two-story sort of, it looks like one of those car trucks that have like 8 cars on it, but it's just cattle. And they
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
will
I know the one.
feed,
Yeah,
yeah,
just
they'll
like
feed them
apartments, right?
grain.
Little
Yeah, stack
slaughterhouse
them in.
apartments.
They're pissing on each other, shitting on each other, the good stuff. And they'll feed them grain to keep their weight because they're not able to eat while they're on that truck, and they could be traveling for a day or so. So there could be some pretty rapid weight loss
Mm.
occur. So they sort of do that. Um, and then yeah, working at a butcher shop, there's a few little sneaky tricks they might play. If you know, you know. But yeah, I'll keep those secrets a secret.
Okay. All right, well, I mean, I don't bother with a whole grass-fed, grain-fed bullshit.
Mm,
All right. I just eat my meat. I just eat my whole foods, right?
yeah.
I eat my whole foods. I control the stuff that I can control. I don't get too into like that. But yeah, how does, for someone uneducated like me, how does grass-fed, grain-fed, how does that affect the quality? Is it
Mm,
the fatty acid composition? Is it like
yeah, it
what's going
is.
on there?
Fatty acid composition. I think the quality of, if you could make an argument for quality of the protein, it's like comparing an
Hmm.
obese human to a individual like yourself who has high quality muscle, low intramuscular fat, uh, and then yeah, the fatty acid composition. Like you've got the saturated fat is probably similar in terms of ratio to the other macronutrients, but then omega 3 to omega 6s is a bit different. It's
Hmm.
a bit more skewed to omega 6s with regards to grain fed products. And the grass fed, you
Okay.
get a minuscule amount of omega 3s. There's a little bit, but not much. But yeah, it's more about
The
the
grass fed, you
balance.
said?
Yeah, you get a touch of omega 3s with grass fed. It's like really, really small. And yeah, I'd say you're going to have a leaner cut too, so lower intramuscular fat. And I think the quality of the product is
Okay.
a little bit higher too.
I mean, all in all, that doesn't sound bad.
No,
The grain
and
fed
I've
versus grass fed.
yeah, and anecdotally, I've heard of
Seems
people
like a
talk
much of a
about
muchness.
literature. It is nutritionally, it seems to be 100-day grain fed to grass fed and finished seems to be the same in terms of nutritional value. If you want to scope out and go more environmental side of things, you're probably going to be producing a little bit less methane gas with just grass fed, bit more of a, you know, give and take
Ah, okay. Yep.
uh, cycle. So it's less, you could have a completely grass-fed, grass-finished setup where there's zero emissions, zero carbon emissions. It's like neutral. You have enough space, the right amount of cattle, and you just rotate that cattle, and they, whatever they excrete and gas they produce through their fertilization of the grass and rotating the cows, it will actually reabsorb all of that and actually be a carbon neutral approach. But it takes a bit of time to achieve that. And then eventually, after years and years, the soil would reach a point where it wouldn't be able to hold on to any more carbon.
Okay, cool, cool. So it almost sounds like, just from what I'm hearing, is that the biggest difference within grass-fed versus grain-fed is not so much the actual nutrient composition, and it's more so about the other impacts, such as environmental.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. And then I also just have a bit of a stigma around it. It's like I think there's a slightly
Mm,
different taste
that's
with
fair.
a pure grass-fed product. The fat is definitely a different color.
Mm,
Like you've got a white fat, very white, pale fat for your grain-fed stuff, and then it's a
mm,
really yellow fat for your grass-fed stuff because there's a higher concentration of keratin, I believe, that the cows consume from the grass, and it discolors the fat to a more yellow tinge. So that's how
mm.
you could potentially pick out a
Yeah, okay.
butcher that
It
is
almost
telling the
sounds
truth
like
or not.
that the nutritional, it almost sounds like there's a huge lag between us, by the way, but it almost sounds like that the nutritional composition is as different as if you just added a spoonful, like a teaspoonful of butter to your cooking, and then the differences get blown out of whack anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's how, I mean, yeah, that's how minuscule you're making it sound, at least.
With you.
What is going on? Sweet. Let's
Yeah.
rock and roll.
So we're going to talk about to bodybuild or to not today, Henry.
We're also gonna try and keep this under an hour, yeah?
Yeah. Because we could talk for a while.
Yeah, cool, cool, cool. Just exactly, exactly. Just to avoid like a 2 hour delay to my start for my chickens. So we'll keep it short. We'll keep the attention span of the viewers. Yeah,
We'll
just
lean in
get
slightly to
ruthless with the
the
chop.
just 2 second attention span that's been developed as a result of social media. So we'll lean into it a little bit.
Yeah. All right, let's dive right in. To bodybuild or not to bodybuild? That is the question.
Brother, what's the go? Like, how do you approach this with someone? If someone's feeling lost, one, or if someone wants to get started, what would you say to an individual?
Fuck. I have a very unorthodox way of looking at it because I know every other coach will be like, you need to know if you love the lifestyle first. You need to know these things. And I think that's true to an extent. Like if you're coming to me and you're like, I want to win national champ, I'm gonna be like, okay, well, you gotta make sure you love it first. But if the person doesn't quite have that expectation, I don't know, man. I reckon just fucking do it, bro. Like we gotta try shit in life.
There's
That's
definitely
that's
something to
that's
be
my
said
stance.
about
I would,
doing a show for sure.
yeah, yeah. That's my stance. I want to just start with that, but I want to hear what you think, and then I'll explain my side a little bit more.
Personally, I set my eyes on and having a very successful first season, so I knew I needed to spend like 2 years of building in an off season. So that was my decision. But you've maybe been training for longer than I was, and you're interested in giving it a go. If you've got enough muscle for the category you want to do, and you're willing to accept, not a negative trade off, but the fact that maybe you won't do as well as you would if you had another year of really dialed in training and nutrition. If you're willing to accept that, then sure, let's go. Let's go for it. Let's be open minded, accept
Mhm.
the different things that you need to dial in terms of nutritional accuracy, elevate your game with regards to training, and sort of learn throughout the prep. I don't think that's a wrong way to go about it.
Because I think there's a lot of things that you can learn from prep, and
Absolutely.
depending on how the individual, yeah, perceives prep, One thing that I have taken from my last prep was uh, skill refinement within training. At the moment, 14 weeks into the off season, I am growing like crazy. I feel like I'm a noob again. And I think that is attributed to the amount of time that I put into refining the skill during prep, still trying to be productive. But of course, during prep, I had no calories to grow. So I think what I've done is I've taken the skill that I've developed during prep, and now I've got the calories, and I'm cashing in like that.
Are you
So I
talking
still
about
think
the
prep
skill
is a time to be
of
productive, and I think
executing
for
an exercise?
skill of executing, yep,
Yeah,
becoming a executionist. Oh, sorry, expert executionist. There you go.
let's go.
Yeah. So that's the skill that I'm talking about. The skill of training, or just in general, right? You get to refine shit. And I think this is particularly helpful for a lot of people because let's be honest, like bodybuilding is a game of delayed gratification, and people don't get into the gym because they're like, I want delayed gratification. So a lot of times you'll find that people that get into prep, they treat it a lot more seriously than in the off season. So I think there is something there where you can utilize that kind of push, that wind behind your back, that external motivator that you get from prep to set you up for a better, long-term career.
Yeah, absolutely. There's maybe two sides to it. There's a side that you're explaining where someone, needs a little bit more, instant gratification initially to then appreciate and understand what needs to be done for future years. And then you are going to get other people that they still go through that process, but maybe they were someone that needed to spend a bit more time in the off season and loving the process, quote unquote. But the crux of it maybe is understanding where the individual's at and trying to make the best decision from you as a coach and your experience to is whether it is feasible to do a prep or maybe they do need to spend a bit of time in the off season.
Mm. So then it comes back to the question of what does the individual want to get out of doing a comp, to prep or
Yeah.
not to prep, right?
What, yeah, absolutely. What do you think someone has to have experience wise? Like, there's obviously could be a few things. There isn't necessarily one thing that's right or wrong, but do you think there's a certain attitude or repertoire someone must hold for you to go, okay, you really want to do this prep? You've got X, Y, and Z. I'm confident that this is going to be more positive than negative.
Ah, yeah, okay. I see what you're saying. First thing that comes to mind without even thinking, curiosity for learning. Yeah, you got to be a
I like that.
curious learner and you got to be receptive to things. Because if you're not, then this prep is not going to give you what you want. You're going to be non competitive and you're not going to learn shit. So that would be the time where I would say to not bodybuild. Like, don't even fucking bother,
Mm.
bro. Because it's about fucking around and finding out. But if you don't find out, you're just fucking around, and that is just a waste of time. Cool. Next on the agenda.
Is the extreme of prep a challenge someone should be looking for? Maybe what should they expect getting into a contest prep?
Is the extreme. You mean like if you're not wanting to get dick skin shredded? Like if you are or not?
Yeah. Is maybe taking it to that next level too much for you? If you're unsure, or you're just happy training and eating really, really well.
Whoa, yeah. I mean, it's an extreme sport. Like if you take BMXing, that's an extreme sport, right? It's extreme mountain biking. If you take the extreme out of it, that's just a fucking cycle in the park, bro. You're just going on a bike ride, you know. So if the word extreme isn't in the prep, you're not really doing a bodybuilding prep. You're just cutting down. You're
Yeah.
just doing an
What
8 week
what do
challenge,
you
bro.
prep
That's not
for?
bodybuilding.
You know, you're 35 weeks out, you're 5 weeks out from potentially starting a prep. Like why are you doing it other than to get really lean to be competitive on a bodybuilding stage? Like what else are you personally getting out of the experience?
Leveling up, setting PBs. I often see it as like an RPG game, you know. I'm just trying to like max out my levels. You just get better and better, and you manage the process better each time as well. It's like hitting a PB. It's a game that never really ends. Oh, I mean, unless until my physiology gives out, which probably another 10 years, but until then, like, it's that satisfaction of like, I've just like climbed another step, I've reached that next summit. I guess the shit thing about bodybuilding is that once you reach the summit, you have to come back down. You can't just keep
Yeah.
climbing. So every time you want to climb, a new PB, like you gotta start from the bottom all over again.
Yeah, there's some degree of
Just
resetting
maybe
at the
with better
baseline, isn't
equipment.
there? Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I know for me, like I
I
was
mean,
really into David Goggins at one point,
of course
and
you were,
that,
you little fucking psycho.
yeah, it was like that led me down sort of a rabbit hole of what is going to be my medium to be that psycho, to do something that's extreme for the purpose of like, setting PBs, being better. And that's where I sort of started to trial things, and it was like, yeah, maybe I can do all right at this, bodybuilding thing. Maybe I can be competitive here. So then it was just about taking taking steps, small steps towards, the goal of getting on stage.
Do you see the point of doing it if you're not gonna be pushing the extremes of your limits?
No,
Oh,
me
actually,
personally,
sorry,
I
better
don't.
question. Yeah, yeah, sorry. There's only one answer for you. I need. Okay, let me rephrase the question. Um, let's say you don't actually set an objective PB, right? Like you don't come in more shredded, but let's say it's a narrative PB, it's a situational PB where I don't know, you've knocked some girl up, you're expecting a baby. Okay, okay, you had the baby. Now you're a dad, right? That's your new life. So you've had to put bodybuilding on hold. So now 5 years down the line, you're looking back at your prep and you're like, I want to prep again because I love it, but I know I'm not gonna be at that level because of the things that I've had to go through in the last 5 years. I've just not had the chance to progress. So you know that you can actually push your boundaries, you can push it to the extreme, your limits, right? With what you do have at the moment. Now, is that is that a good enough reason for you to start prep?
I think so. Like the goal for me would shift from being biggest leanest on stage to taking that, but you know, putting it into my current situation. It's like how big, how lean can I get whilst I've got one, two, however many kids, however old they are, trying to manage that, trying to manage, the relationship with a significant other. It's like how can I juggle all of these things? And that's sort of the challenge in itself. Like it's a byproduct. Like the competition prep's a byproduct, or the results a byproduct of pushing yourself to an extreme to where you're less likely to manage these things well. Like, let's be real, when energy availability's down the shitter, like it's not as easy to be emotionally available, just organize life. It's not as easy. So that in itself would be, for me, that would really bolster my confidence, and it'd be setting a PB of like, damn, I can do a bodybuilding prep and juggle two kids, a wife, and a job at the same time. Like that's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. So the extreme in this case refers to just the extreme of pushing your limits, not necessarily a physical limit, right? Not an objective like, am I better than before kind of extreme.
Yeah, I guess you've got to sort of ask yourself, is that possible? Is it going to occur? I mean, I'm always going to go, yeah, man, this is like, we're going to be 5 kilos heavier, set outlandish targets because I don't think, like, why would you doubt yourself? Why would you sort of cut your legs short in that regard? So for me, that's always there. But at the end of the day, like focusing on the other stuff is probably what I'd lean into more. I still have the more objective related things there, but I'd focus more on the process related targets.
Hmm. That reminds me of a conversation that I recently had with an athlete, which is like you have to have these outlandish kind of ideologies in your head. And the conversation was something to do with the fact that most people during prep, they just cuck themselves into thinking that they're gonna lose muscle. And that is the first step to them losing muscle
Yeah,
because it becomes a
absolutely.
self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah. They go, oh, I'm not supposed to be getting stronger in prep. And so they don't try, they accept it. And because they accept it, it doesn't happen and they lose more muscle. But then you've got some crazy, quote unquote, genetic freak who's not really a genetic freak. They're just mentally wired a little bit fucked up. And they're like, you know what? I'm not going to let my performance drop in prep because it's a choice. And as much as it is, it also isn't. But they don't believe that. They're just like, ah, whatever. But they're the kind of guys, they're the kind of people that end up putting on muscle.
Yeah.
And I think this
I
can also explain. Sorry, I think this can also explain some of the gender differences that we see between muscle mass, or the level of competitiveness between male and female. Well, yeah, men and women in a physique sports. Let's be real here. Female divisions are nowhere near as competitive as the male divisions. I'm sorry. I hate that. I don't want to say this, but I think it's the truth. I think it's the truth. And I think the reason why there is such a gender difference, I don't think it's because of uh, testosterone augmenting the physiological, rate of growth. I think it's quite simply the culture of, well, just culture in general, making men into these like competitive, egotistical, little creatures that were like, we're just gonna be throwing shit against the wall as hard as we can and progressing that way. Like that culture is way more prominent in guys than it is in girls. And I do feel like just across different demographics, we see like the teenage boys, the broccoli hair motherfuckers with the dangly cross earrings, like they're on average likely training a lot harder than their female counterparts. Sorry, I've gone
yeah,
off on a tangent here, but
nah. I
it's
think
it's
I
that
think that's
kind
why
of
you see
belief.
those really sort of elite and outlier females because maybe they're going against,
Yes.
a generalization of their sex. Um and if they do push themselves, relatively speaking, they're going to put on the same degree of muscle mass. Like I know Dr. Martin Ruffalo has done research with regards to, the propensity to put on muscle tissue comparing males to
Mhm.
females. Like they
And there
relatively
is
put
not
on the same
this
amount of muscle. It's going to look differently for sure. However,
Hmm.
uh, you know, someone who is willing to learn is able to, have an ego, but if they're told they're not training hard enough, step it up and put the foot down, like that is going to result in, you know, a really cool, massive, muscular physique.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I don't know about you, but when I look at the overall winner of an open bodybuilder and the overall winner of, like a female physique athlete, or even like fit body, even figure, the muscular classes. Like I'm looking at those guys and I'm not thinking one looks more competitive or one looks, more impressive than the other. Like the outlier females, like they're fucking weapons. But yeah, I do think they are just, the type of people that do train a little bit more like that.
Yeah, that there's maybe a segment in the industry that pushes less intense training for females. Um, you know, this is like the whole RIR debate. It's like, oh, as soon as we get too
Mm.
close to zero RIR, we're, taking a trade-off that's more negative than positive with regards to muscle gain. And that's a little bit too black and white to just say that. And we need to look at exercise specific recommendations more so. And it's just like everyone just really needs to train as hard as they can for every exercise. Like that's probably a better recommendation. And I know you probably have the same opinion with this, Henry. It's much easier to hold someone back a bit than get someone up to a standard of training really, really hard.
Mm.
Like that's a much easier process to coach. Um,
Much, much easier.
yeah, absolutely. And so,
Yeah.
you know, just like a male, I think, the muscle will respond in the same way for females. So, training recommendations should be roughly the same. I'm definitely not going to sit here on a soapbox and say, there's obviously certain considerations around uh, a female's menstrual cycle that generally it doesn't change much. Again, it's person dependent, but the recommendation would always be pretty similar to train as hard as you can for that given session, given
Mm.
exercise. So definitely don't lean into training less intense because that's what's going to give you the muscle and help you maintain that muscle too.
Mm. Bodybuilding is one of those sports where when people get a little bit too close to max intensity, they go, "Oh, probably shouldn't be going this hard." If you look at any other sports, let's take football, for example, right? You're chasing after a ball, right? Someone's kicked it, you chasing after it. Someone, a defender's like right on your ass. You're trying to get to it before they are. Like, there's no thought that crosses your mind that goes, "Oh shit, I'm approaching RPE 10. I better slow down."
Fatigue,
Like,
watch out, fatigue, fatigue.
yeah. Like, what are you saving yourself for, Bodybuilding is the only sport where we have this fear of training too hard. Every other sport, the whole point is to go as hard as you fucking can. It's not even a thought to, well, like RIR. What is RIR in the context of chasing a ball on the field?
Absolutely.
And that's why I think
Now,
people are shit.
why not? uh, we sort of went off a tangent there, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with that because that was a very worthwhile conversation to have. But I think it's going to be a never-ending dilemma. People not training hard enough. Now, with you, Henry, what were some challenges you had in prep that maybe you can relate to challenges people might expect to occur?
Oh,
Deep.
this is very deep. Oh, can you stop?
Sure. Well, given it was my first prep, I, again, like we've spoken about, had some process orientated goals. One of them was to not let my, lack of energy, particularly after work, impact how I responded to other people. So I was going to still try and uphold, you know, a good sense of character. So, for example, I get home from in-person PT at like 7:30, and I'd essentially cook dinner, sink into the couch, eat my meal, wouldn't want to talk to anyone. But if someone wanted to talk to me, I still mightn't say it in a really nice way. It would be said in a okay way. I'd say, "Sorry, Dad, I'm very tired. I just want to eat my food and make my breakfast and go to bed." So I tried to sort of not let my shitty mood or lack of energy impact others' energy. Could I be better? Absolutely. But, I could definitely have seen an alternate reality where I was just being a dickhead. So that was one thing that I was reasonably happy with. And that was a challenge that I knew I was going to have to face.
You sound like you come from a very loving and supportive family.
It was more just just let him do his thing. Just let him sit in the corner and just leave him alone.
That was a very diplomatic way of saying "fuck off," which
Yeah,
is what I
that's
would have
right.
said. Were there any fuck off moments for you?
Well, all right, let's put it like this. If you come home, have the same routine and probably feeling the same way every single time at the same time of day, and said individual in the house continues to try and start conversation at the same time relative to probably the same response they're getting every single day, you sort of ask yourself, why the fuck are you still asking to talk to or wanting to talk to me when I just want to eat my food, make my breakfast, and go to bed? So that was maybe, I get pushed a little bit, where it's like, mate, I think I've said this to you for the past 5 days in a row at the exact same time. Like, we're not clicking on here, are we?
Read the fucking room, bro.
I mean, I definitely, if someone wanted to have a proper conversation with me about something, it's like, find me in the morning. Like, I've just woken up, I'm feeling great. Like, let's get a conversation in at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's probably going to be where I'm most productive.
I had similar challenges with Beck. Um, it was our first time prepping together, our first time living together, and I remember to like in the beginning, some disagreements would happen, and we would just get super short with each other, and it got till I'm gonna say maybe the halfway point where it was just that difficult managing everything around prep, the low energy, the just trying to tick things off the box. That was the moment where I went from one extreme to the other. And I just went, you know what? Like, this is not conducive to my goals. I'm just laters. Like, I'm not even going to waste energy on this. That was a great moment.
Yeah.
And I wish,
You,
yeah,
your
I
batteries only
wish,
got so much energy.
yeah, yeah. And it's such a mindful way of dealing with that moment as well. Just a bit unfortunate that, it was a case of, yeah, just survivability that prompted me to have this more mindful approach, or us prompted us to have this more mindful approach in interacting with each other when we're not feeling it. All it took was our bodies breaking down for us to be like, you know
Yeah.
what? It's not worth it, babe.
And look, that's like a huge lesson to learn, take on with you into the future, right? It's like learning when to pull the other person in line potentially, or when to worry about something and when to let other things go. It's like there's some things that are worth fighting about and some that are just like, what's the point if you didn't put the salt back, in the right place? It's like who really cares? It's not worth having a meltdown over that.
Sometimes you just want to fight, though.
Hey,
Yeah,
I
as,
can't
as far
argue with
as
that.
as far as yeah, as far as challenges go, I don't think I had too many challenges because it was my first time prepping with a coach, and I was able to just kind of execute. I guess the main challenge was to learn how to fit my just fit myself into someone else's system.
Okay.
But in doing so allowed me to look at the equation from a slightly different lens. I could look at things in retrospect. I could observe, right? It went from a randomized control trial to like an observational study where I could learn through just watching and implementing.
Yeah.
So that was cool. So I don't think it was a
Nice.
huge challenge, but minor challenge.
Mm,
Do you have a funny prep story?
I do. I've got a few. I mean, one of them was always it would always occur post refeeds. Now, as I'm sure you know, Henry, gastric emptying significantly reduces during prep. And normally around refeeds, you get a little bit of a prompt to go to the bathroom. And so I had to be careful sometimes, depending on the toilet I was using. So I had to be aware of my facilities and potentially implement or employ multiple flushes just to ensure, you know, the massive buildup of fibrous matter was sufficiently flushed away and not, causing any blockages, which I did run into that occasion once or twice. So that was always pretty funny. But see, that's not something I'd like have a cry or get super stressed about. I was like, well, fuck, what can I do about this? But yeah, there was a couple of times where the toilet was blocked, so that was pretty funny. But yeah, I just learnt for the future though, Henry. There's no such thing as a failure if you don't learn the lessons that you get taught.
Did you have to
So
use
for
the
me,
plunger?
yeah, I did, man. On one occasion, I did not let it happen again though.
Wow.
Yeah,
So it's not just a matter of a couple of flushes. Like you actually had to like, you know,
yeah, man.
waffle stomp it a little bit.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was like, well, how the fuck has this happened? Yeah, so then it was a matter of, okay, like I've been on here for a little bit. Let's just clear the toilet, clear the landing zone for another run, and then I should be fine.
Oh man. All right, look, I'm gonna expose myself. I'm gonna expose myself. I've got a poop related prep story too.
Oh,
So, of course, as you mentioned, changes to gastric motility during prep, during low dieting conditions, low calorie, chronic restriction of calories. Our body tends to slow down the digestion, slows down the transit time, you know, probably to try and increase nutrient harvesting capacity, trying to squeeze every little drop out of the food that we eat. And so, of course, you experience constipation symptoms, usually just a loss in frequency, sometimes a little bit of pain. Anyway, got to the point where I was so constipated, I hadn't gone in a couple of days. And, the longer it stays there, right, the more it dries out. So it just gets harder and harder. Gets like both actually, like the stool itself gets harder and it also becomes harder to get it out. So it finally got to the point where there was just so much pain, like even though it wasn't moving, the pain I just had to sit on the toilet. And I was there for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and it just wasn't moving. It was turtlenecking, right? It was crowning. I could feel it because my asshole was fucking stretched in that position for a very long time. It wasn't like, how sometimes you can swallow it back up, right?
yeah, it's just sticking out like this. You just
It
got
just stayed in there. Yeah, exactly. But you can swallow it back up if you don't feel it. Just okay, I'll try it again another time. No, it just stayed kind of half exposed out in the open, just waiting to, bomb into the pool. And I just got desperate. I was like, okay, like this feels really weird. It's a very different sensation. So I reached around just to like, palpate it a little bit. I was like, look, I'll maybe just massage the areas, get the edges over a little bit. And dude, it was like clay, man. Like I had to touch it. I had to touch it as well because I was like, this is crazy. Like, why is it
had
not
to.
passing? So I touched it and it was literally, yeah, yeah, it was literally a ball of clay. It felt Yeah, like that's exactly what it felt like to the touch. So I basically spent another 10 minutes trying to push my skin, my sphincter, around the golf ball. It's more like a baseball, man. And it just wasn't working because it was that big. It wasn't just, a little like spherical thing that I could push out. It was also like, a little bit, it had some length to it too. My last resort was I literally had to pick the flakes of shit bit by bit that was hanging out of my ass and just really massage like there's shit everywhere, bro. Thank God it was dry. But I literally like stay there until I could reach my hands into my butthole and pull the rest of his shit out
Henry,
because it
the
was
detail that
just
you're
that
exposing
painful.
here is as if it happened yesterday. Whether you could write a short story on this, I don't know. It sounds like you could. Uh, but yeah,
It's burned into my memory,
I,
bro.
I can tell, man.
Yeah, I've not told many people about this. Beck knows, Brandon knows. I think that's it. But I'm ready to share my trauma with the world.
Yeah, well, I feel sorry for those poor souls that both of our shit stories, to be quite honest, are quite horrendous in themselves. Oh dear.
Uh,
Was
you
there
haven't
anything else? I'm
experienced
trying to remember if I had any
constipation?
more. No, I had no issues. Like, yes, gastric emptying reduced. However, I was never constipated or anything. Uh, but yeah, that's crazy. Um, I don't think I'd have any other. I
So
mean,
you never had any
I,
pain.
no, I had no pain. But very quickly to sort of depart the shit conversation. uh, I mean,
To
I mentioned
evacuate
this to you.
the shit
Yeah, the
conversation.
evacuation. I mentioned this to you on a message that kind of funny, but sort of epitomizes the psychotic nature that you need to potentially have in you. Is I remember in between my shows, I'd get ready for my top set on a particular movement, and particularly if I was feeling a little bit lackluster or lower on energy, I'd sort of laugh my way into the set. Like, haha, let's go. Like, we're here. We're, as lean as we're gonna get, and I'm gonna match this week. Let's go. And so I'd sort of laugh my way to the first rep, and I always found that a little bit humorous. I think to myself, is anyone watching me? Does anyone think I'm, an absolute freak of nature to some degree? But yeah, that's kind of a, little cool little story, I guess. You still do it. I
It's,
do it on occasion.
yeah, it's kind of like method acting, eh? It's
Mm.
really a process of getting in character. It's part of that visualization process that is super important for athletes to practice, visualizing how the set is going to look. And I think when you can get into that character, however you want to tap into that, but that's certainly one of my ways
Yeah, because
to
you
embrace this,
cannot
like,
you cannot
oh, the
let
delay got us again.
the lackluster the lackluster energy affect your aggression. For a set, like you can't let that get the better of you. Otherwise, performance just won't be where it needs to be.
So a lot of times, like channeling that inner Joker, the I love pain. Yeah,
Yeah,
that can really
absolutely.
turn something that is uncomfortable into uncomfortable and positive rather than uncomfortable and negative.
Yeah, I love that. Well, man, I felt like, apart from a couple of side tangents, we got through some good stuff today.
Yeah, I thought that was short, succinct, just enough.
Yeah,
I
and
reckon this will be like
considering the
what,
amount of
45
delay
minutes
that
after.
we're experiencing,
Yeah, bro, that's been
we're
challenge.
we've done pretty well. If someone butts in, you're like, oh, quick, let me just pause here for a moment, wait 5 seconds and continue, or wait. We did pretty well, man. I will have to quickly make a call to Elon and get my Starlink package installed ASAP, and hopefully this will resolve future issues.
Sweet. I don't even know what Starlink is. I just know it's something to do with the internet, bro. I'm that behind.
Yeah,
I just go to the gym
it's
and come back
it's
home. That's it.
it's a direct link to satellite, so there's no need to go through NBN. It's just a private service server sort of thing. So you have your own satellite on your house, and it just goes straight to the satellite in the sky.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can everyone
and
get this?
yeah, man. There's I think I don't know if they've resolved these potential issues with newer models, but supposedly on really bad extreme weather conditions, you might have some difficulty connecting to the satellite, in the sky. But I think generally it's pretty good. So we're gonna give it a crack because we regularly don't have amazing internet.
Hmm. All right. So let's summarize everything. Do you think this would be like a nice little way to end it? To bodybuild
Sure,
or
man.
not? Extremes
To
and
bodybuilding or
challenges.
to not. You need to accept that things are going to be difficult and you need to sort of want that to some degree. You want to take on that challenge. If so, I think go for it. Bodybuilding is something that, you should do and give a go. Make sure you've got good guidance as you can really make a prep really, really difficult if you want to. I personally haven't experienced that, but I know others that have. So having good guidance is super important. Um, and you might be someone that needs to spend more time in the off season, dotting your I's, crossing your T's, loving the process. But maybe you're someone that's in a position to also gain an immense amount of benefit from doing a contest prep a little bit earlier in your career. It's just solely going to come down to what's going on up inside your brain and whether it makes sense or not.
Yeah. If you want to bodybuild for the sick physique at the end of it, you're doing it for the wrong reason. If you're bodybuilding because you want to go through the process and learn, and even though you might not be that competitive because you're really early on in your career, as long as you are in the process, I don't see a reason why you shouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's totally like an individual decision to make with potential guidance. It's not a if you're not going to be top five, you can't compete because that's not real. That's actually not realistic for everyone, and that doesn't mean you
Mm.
shouldn't compete too.
Yeah, for sure. Are you about pushing your body to the absolute limits, to its extreme, whatever that means for your particular circumstance, whether that is just how far your physique has come, your training age, or it's context dependent. Maybe you come out of a divorce, you need something to do. You're like, I want to take on this new journey. But it's only if you want to push the limits. Otherwise, if you take the extreme out of the extreme sport, then like I said, it's just like, riding your bike in a park and it's no longer BMX, right? You've just turned
Yeah,
MotoGP into commuting to the fucking gym. Like,
not the same thing. Well, uh, as we depart and take our hands off each other's swords, we leave everyone today with hopefully something learned. And this is episode 1 of the Jacky and Chan Show. I don't know if we're going to call it a show, podcast, or whatever. Doesn't really matter. But Jacky and Chan, we are radioing out.
perfect. Now I've been experimenting with smoking weed before my sessions. I'm still collecting my data for this little experiment. So next session, I'd like to talk about some of my findings of getting high and
Okay.
hitting high weights.
On that note, we'll leave it there. Thanks,
Peace
man.
out.